was just telling them that I remember, and that's my Kennedy moment. You know, your parents probably remember where they were when Kennedy was shot. This was my generation. It's like, I was teaching, we were given the I-STEP. I was teaching in Columbia City, and I was pregnant with Molly. And, you know, standardized test situations are quiet and stressful. And there was a knock on my door. I was so annoyed, because, you know, it's standardized tests. It's like, who is that? And I went to the door, and it was a guidance counselor, and he was going from door to door. And he said, just wanted to let you know that we think the Twin Towers have been attacked by terrorists. I'm going, well, you know, and, he goes, but don't tell the kids. Okay, so I go back in there, and they can kind of tell something was wrong by the look on my face, but I didn't say anything. Homestead sent their kids home early, which is unheard of, because the ISEP has to be given at the same time and the same days in public schools. They all have to start at 8, they have to go so many days, same everything to prevent cheating. And they let their kids go early. And so I just kept on going through the tests, and I had relatives right there, right by Twin Towers. And so my mind was there, and then after the test was over, teachers started turning on their TVs. And kids were finding out, some knew before others knew, and it was just chaos. People couldn't wrap your mind around it, you know, couldn't fathom what was happening. And, you know, then when there were, you know, a second one, and it was just, plus 6 months before that, I had taken 20-some kids to the top of the World Trade Center on a field trip. So to know that we had been there 6 months before that, you know, and that it was gone. So that was a very stressful time, and you couldn't escape it. It was everywhere, radio, TV, newspapers, and being pregnant, it was also very stressful. And I think some schools may have even canceled school the next day. But yeah, I remember exactly what was going on. It's terrible. Yeah. So, and last night Obama gave a short speech. It was that's my opinion, about how he's handling the ISIS situation, which is a very serious situation. If you haven't tuned into what's going on, ISIS is an Islamic group, a crazy Islamic group, my opinion again, that beheaded 2 American journalists. You can go to YouTube and watch it if you want, but I wouldn't. But they don't show the actual beheading, but they show him laying there with like his head on his chest. I mean, it's very graphic video, and it will warn you that it's a graphic video. And so I guess ISIS is just trying to take over the world, I would imagine. And they've made threats against us and threats against Russia. And so Obama was talking last night about, you know, not to worry. They've got a plan, a strategy. But I always, every year on 9/11, I get really worried, because people like to do things on the anniversary of things. Like Columbine, you know, the first real school shooting. Did we talk about that in here? Yeah, someone. Yeah. That was on 4/20, April 20th, which is Hitler's birthday. That's why those 2 boys chose that day to do that. So every year on 4/20, you know, and also 4/20 is supposed to be the hour every day that people get high. It's stupid. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but it's ridiculous. So I always wonder, you know, on like the anniversary of the Boston Marathon thing, you always wonder if someone's planning something else. And supposedly the ISIS group has people inside in America, you know. It's just scary, which kind of goes along with our book a little bit, but, you know, watch the news, and when we get to government class, we'll talk about some of these crazy groups, and it's interesting yet scary. What?
Terrifying.
Yeah, at the same time, yeah. Terrorist groups, and one thing Obama said that I totally agreed with last night was that they're doing this in the name of Islam religion. It's like there's nothing religious about beheading people and killing people. Not the religion we know anyway. And I'm pretty sure Islam doesn't approve of.
I've heard that a lot of most Muslims are very upset by it and are saying that they don't want to have anything to do with them.
Yeah.
And it just adds more stigma.
Yeah, and this is the one, I don't usually keep up with what's going on, but this is the one thing they're actually keeping up with.
Yeah.
And they've been beheading children.
Yes.
And mostly Christians, they've been taking their moms and killing their dads.
It's terrible.
It's horrible.
They're just insane group of people, and they're almost worse than Osama bin Laden. And I've never been a proponent of war, but if we had to go to war over this, I understand. I didn't understand 10 years ago when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan. I didn't totally agree with that, and the country was mixed on that as well. But this needs to be stopped, and I don't know that, killing begets killing, you know what I mean? It's like, we're against them killing, so what are we gonna do, kill them? It's like, well, I don't know what the answer is, but they're some serious monsters. And, some people accuse Obama of being Muslim, which he's not, but there are a lot of people who think that he is.
Not all Muslims are bad.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly, and unfortunately, after 9/11, I'm glad you brought that up, after 9/11, when a Muslim would get on an airplane, people would just be so scared of him. It would be like if a Christian group did something horrible and then all Christians were looked at strangely, or pick any religion, any religious group that did something. So definitely, if this is the year that you're in government, which all of you are, government and econ, this is, I'd like you to, keep watching the news and the current events and paying attention to what's going on, especially those of you who will vote in the next election. That's gonna be a big one, because a lot of people are looking at how Obama handles this. He can't be reelected anyway. He's served his 2 terms, but, you definitely one of the things you should look at is how the president handles foreign policy, and what allies we have, and what countries will stand up with us against crazy groups like this. So, yeah, not a happy topic, but anyway, it's kind of a somber day, so if you see those black ribbons everywhere, that's what that signifies. Okay. Today's a community meeting. If you saw your name out on the dry erase board, that means, and there are a few of you name up there, that means you haven't gone on the photographer's website and chosen which picture you want for your ID. And he wants you to do that by tomorrow. Did you get a paper about that? Okay. Molly's name's on there too. And she didn't give me her paper. We had this conversation last night. I'm like, you need to tell me these things just because I work there doesn't mean I what you got. So, make sure you, take time to do that sometime today. If you don't do it by tomorrow afternoon, he's gonna pick which one he thinks is best, and there may be a fee he'll charge you if you don't do it in a timely manner, so just wanted to pass that along to you, okay? All right, vocab quiz tomorrow, first one, I just made it, 17 words, okay? So, we'll do that right away tomorrow, and we need to do word of the day today, yeah.
This is a bit like, well, it has to do with like 9/11.
Mhm.
Like, I was talking with some of my coworkers yesterday about how like we're surprised that like we don't get 9/11 off, because for some people it's like
Yeah,
remembering their family is who like died.
yeah,
Because we had in our community where we lived in California, this girl was on the plane and she was only like 16, 17, something like that. Her parents lost her, and they still wear like these buttons that have her face on it and remember her. And it's so horrible when you see them out in public and they're just like, you can tell that they're not like the people they used to be.
oh,
because
I'm
of
sure
what
you're
happened.
forever
And
changed,
It's really sad.
absolutely, your word is deft. My cousin and his family, lived in Tribeca. And if you're familiar with New York,
Mhm.
that's pretty close to the financial district. My cousin's wife worked for Liz Claiborne, and, she came home and got the kids and the nanny, and they walked like 34 blocks back to her office because it was farthest away from all of the debris and everything. And my cousin was actually in New Jersey. He was stuck on the bridge actually between New Jersey and New York, and all the cell phone towers were down, and so they couldn't contact each other, and they were okay. But, I mean, the whole city was forever affected. Then the next time I took kids there on a field trip, we went back to Ground Zero.
Mhm.
And that was 2 years after 9/11, and it was still, there was a little choir singing. The buildings around it still had boards over the windows. I mean, you know, it took them a long time to erect the new structure that is there now. And if you have a picture, if you ever went to New York before 9/11 and you have a picture of the Twin Towers, don't ever get rid of it, because it'll never, you know, they're gone. It'll never be the same.
Mhm.
And it's like historical. It's very, I can't think of the word, it's just so extremely sad when you go back down here to Ground Zero and see everything. Hi. Hi. Oh yeah, you had an orthodontist.
Yeah.
I was gonna say an orthodontist meeting, yeah. We were just talking about the significance of 9/11 and,
I figured that's what we'd be talking about.
yeah. And then, we talked about ISIS,
Oh, I was just reading about that while I was waiting for this.
yes, and Obama's speech last night, and, kinda ties into Animal Farm a little bit, I suppose. And I was just reminding everybody, if you're taking government next semester, just keep watching the news and the current events and see where this whole ISIS thing goes. Did he just growl? Oh, okay. I know, Trip, it's. So your word is deft, and I was just reminding everybody of the quiz tomorrow, Paige, and that there's 17 words.
Right.
Yeah.
Could you do something?
Pardon?
Could you, like, give us an example, I think, for that one?
Yes, I can, I'll read this, actually. Having worked in a bakery for many years, Marcus was a deft bread maker. So he was skillful, capable. So you could, make a ballet sentence out of it. A deft. It doesn't sound like a positive word, but it
No, it
is.
doesn't. I thought it was
Yeah, I thought
negative
it was
term.
like-
Cause daft.
Yeah, I think that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Means kind of, not bright.
Yeah.
So you know. And the quizzes aren't bad, are they? Marnie and Holly, you've
No.
taken the quizzes from last year, they're not
Wait, which one? Oh,
Brit Lit quizzes.
No, they're
Do you like, what do you think of this little book?
I like it.
It's handy, once you get the hang of it. And this will be great practice for those of you who want to take the PSAT or the SAT. Okay, hang on to this.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, are they pretty much like the same of what we ran in the?
Yeah. These words are just, you know, a step up a little bit.
Are these what they use in like the vocab section, like where they ask you what this word means?
Say that again.
Yeah, on the SAT, is it like for the vocab section, is that what these are from? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
They like ask you to insert a word.
And we won't make it through all 1,000 of them in 2 years in Brit Lit, but, you know, whichever ones are left, you can still study them on your own. Okay, Animal Farm. Yes.
There was a massacre.
Speaking of bad things, yes, it was a bitter winter. First sentence. Anyone, you wanna describe the massacre, Aaron?
I only remember a few of the animals that were killed, like the 4 pigs that spoke out against Napoleon. I don't really remember the argument that they had. But all I knew was the dogs ripping their throats out pretty
Mhm.
much. Yeah,
Pretty gruesome.
That was pleasant.
Yes. Mary?
You like had people confess things that like they had communicated with Snowball or whatever, and then they get killed, but it's like they didn't actually have anything to do with Snowball like recently, so
Mhm.
why are they saying those things?
And that's what I wanna talk about today too. Holly?
Because maybe they'd rather, well, to answer your question, maybe because they'd rather not be living than live in misery in this horrible society that Napoleon has
It's
created.
just like in Fahrenheit 451, when the firemen go to that lady's house and burn her books. I still think she would rather die with her books than live in that society that she was living in. And that's why she chose that. That's just my interpretation of the literature, but yeah, I do think some of the animals just started confessing things that they had nothing to do with, just so they could get out of a terrible situation possibly. Renee?
I actually completely disagree.
Okay. Cool.
Because if we think about Fahrenheit 51, the woman, like, when she got burned, like, she actually had a higher intelligence, not only being a human, but the fact that she had read those books, and that she had a moral, like, more of a, attachment with those, and
Mhm.
so, obviously, she could evaluate the situation and say, well, I'd rather do this than,
True.
you know, go with the fireman. But if we look at it and see the fact that, like, these animals are kind of stupid and they're more like partisans,
Okay.
and I feel like they were actually confessing because Napoleon almost made them feel guilty, like in a way, and almost like in the fact that like they felt that, because like one of the hens was saying they had a dream. Well, of course they can have a dream of Snowball, but then they feel like that's 100% fact. That
Reality,
Like, it's
yeah.
Snowball that was coming in their dream. And I just feel like the guilt that they felt made them feel unworthy to be part of the farm. Because
Okay.
these are the animals that can't even, like, spell.
Right.
So I don't think they could actually evaluate the situation and
Okay.
say, like, I'd
Good
rather be
point.
dead.
Good point. Have you ever been a part of something and you felt guilty about it even though you didn't really do anything?
Mhm.
You just happened to be there and you were like, oh, I need to get this off me. I feel like or have you ever confessed to something to your parents out of guilt? Perfect example. We have these white plates at home. They're just, you have your dinner plates and you have the smaller like salad plate, right? We only have a few left. They're nothing fancy, not at all. They're just everyday dishes. Well, Jack, most of you know Jack. He's my son, Aaron, in case you don't know. He came to me with his wallet the other day. He broke one, and he was going to give me $5 for it.
Oh.
That's so cute.
And I said, no, sweetie, it's okay. They weren't,
Good kid.
they weren't the presidential china or anything. It's all right. But he felt guilty and felt he should have said something, and I appreciated that, and I told him that. But, you know, I used to do, we've all done similar stuff like that, you know, where we feel like, just to clear our conscience, right? Sorry, I should have turned my phone off, speaking. So they're confessing to things they probably didn't even do. Holly?
Well, when I was little, my sister and I, we hated salmon. My mom cooked salmon for us for dinner. When she left us home alone, she was like, okay, you need to eat this for dinner. And we decided it would be a good idea to take it outside and throw it over the hill. And so, so you can only imagine, and my sister's probably like 10, and I'm like, you know, a couple years younger than her. And so we like, I don't know why we didn't like bring it out in a container, but we took 2 spatulas and we toasted it up. And we were so proud. We dropped it on the carpet on the way to
Oh, no.
the sliding door. And so there's like this big oil stain. And then on top of that, our neighbor sees us and he's like, what are you guys doing? We're like, nothing. So we like did not get away with that. So because we had to put like we found like a little piece of carpet, like my mom figured it out, and we were like, yeah, and so she was really upset, but she also laughed at the same
Yeah.
time, so it was okay.
Do you eat salmon now?
Mhm, I love salmon. So it's just fun.
And
Yeah.
I think, you know, when you're with your brothers and sisters, things tend to happen more right. And one person in the group will have a conscience and say, we should tell mom and dad. And usually there's another one in the group who's like, no, we shouldn't. And
I was frustrated with the old person who's like, we should tell them, just don't ruin it.
It's usually the weird Grace who I love that.
I was
Yeah.
Jada who's like, oh, we need to tell them. It's like, yeah, we should. Just, they didn't want to hear that.
Right, exactly. Okay, so what else is going on? Or are there any more comments about the massacre? Maddie?
I see it as from like the Salem witch trial and how people just got so caught up in that that they just kind of like made it seem real.
Yeah,
kind of, and
that's a very good analogy.
yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the Salem witch trials, you know, everyone was a witch for, you know, just
Probably in
doing
the
silly
field.
things. She's a witch, yeah. You've probably all seen the Monty Python. She's a witch, she's a witch. Paige?
I think, well, Maddox's example was really, really great for that, and it kind of went along with, like, everyone has commented on how people are, like, confessing for things that maybe they weren't even guilty for, or you're just made to feel guilty until they feel like they need to. And at first, my thought on that was, like, well, before people made those comments, I was like, well, why are people confessing these things? Like, it's not like he knew. They could just as easily keep it to themselves and, like, spare themselves. Why do they feel like they need to voice what they did when they know they're going to be killed for it?
Mhm.
So, I mean, we've had differing opinions on that, but I guess the thing I'm thinking with that is if it's like the whole seeing something that you know is wrong and it's like you feel guilty even though you didn't necessarily do anything. And I think like for me, the reason I'm gonna feel guilty because I maybe saw something that I know was wrong. The only reason I'm gonna feel guilty is if I didn't say anything to stop what was going on, or I didn't voice what I thought was wrong about it. And I think that that's the thing with Salem witch trials is like, obviously, you know, we've read books about it. We know there are people who are like, we see that this is wrong, but because they're scared as well, they're not willing to do the hard thing
Mhm.
and say, hey, you know, this isn't what should be happening right now.
It reminds me of bullying. You know, when you see someone being bullied, did the bell ring?
It's
still
ringing.
I think Miss Faulkner, she had to
Changed it
reset
now.
the
Yeah,
bell.
she adjusted it because of our meeting. What I was gonna say was, when you see something bad happening to someone, do you just ignore it and go on about your business, or do you, you know, stop and say this isn't right? And that's the whole bullying project, which has really taken off the past couple of years. Okay, study for your vocab quiz and read chapter 8, please.